So just to tell that whether it is past or future, they are all related on a spectrum. And again, in the first lecture, we saw Gary Kasparov. We talked about the TED talk he gave about work with machines, don't fear them. So, in that talk, if you watch it, let me give you a bit of context here. So, Gary Kasparov learned that machines are much better at some things than humans. So, in sheer calculation, machines have infinite patience, infinite speed, infinite RAM compared to us. So, Gary Kasparov, after he was defeated, he actually created a new competition, new type of competition where you can actually come with a machine. So, Gary Kasparov and a team of grandmasters and supercomputers, they kind of like participated in a new competition. Okay, but the people, the team which won the new competition was people who were amateur programmers, people who were amateur, even chess players. They won with a desktop of that time. They were playing against Russia, a team of grandmaster, a world champion, the most powerful computer available to them, and a mediocre computer, a mediocre chess players and programmers won. Why? Because they could effectively combine human plus machine. It's the combination which we have to make work. Strong machine doesn't mean the net effect is strong. Strong human doesn't mean the net effective output is strong. You have to work together. Something which you just offload to some the machine which is better, and things like neurochip. We will effectively have AI in our brain. There, such thing becomes even more important. Right now, AI is present on a computer, and we are still learning how to work with it. Not many people are doing that. But in 20 years, 50 years, we are actually going to have AI in our brain, a chip implanted in our brain. So, learning to work with it effectively, learning to guide it effectively becomes of a lot importance. So, the way we are looking at past is not just to feel good about it, but to predict future trends so that we can learn lessons from the past and not repeat the same mistakes. You see, Gary Kasparov learned from his loss, whereas Lee Sedol didn't. He retired after he lost against AlphaGo. Look at the difference. Look at the difference in how something was, dealt with. You kind of like lost your world number one. You lost in a game you spent your lifetime developing, and you actually create a new type of competition. You hear the same thing. You lost in a game you spent lifetime refining, and you retire. Actually, other Go players, they are learning so much from looking at games of AlphaGo. Lee Sedol also could have done that. His game could have reached the heights he would have never dreamt of achieving if only he had worked with the AI, used the AI, not actually become, retire because of it. So there are these games. There's game which is chess. Most people know chess, which is board 8 by 8. Whereas Go is much simpler game. We have 19 by 19 squares, and there are only black and white pieces. Okay, even though rules are simple, in terms of complexity, Go is a lot more complex game, insanely complex than chess. So just to showcase also the increasing capabilities of AI. So these are exciting times. These are extremely exciting times. And present is extremely exciting, but it is also extremely limiting. There are two different kinds of AI. One, narrow AI. A AI which can only do what it has been trained to do. You see the AlphaGo game in previous slide. It's an example of narrow AI. It can just do that. If we have an AI for translation, it can just do translation. But what people are afraid of are general AIs. And because people confuse narrow AI with general AI, they actually carry the fear of general AI to their the reality. Right now, we are only in the time of narrow AI. We build a AI which can only do what it has been built to do. And then, if we want to make it better, we actually need to work on it. Currently, AI does not work on itself to remove itself, improve itself. That is in realm of general AI. We are not there yet. So things like Terminator, things like, any existential crisis thing, it is not actually yet possible. We are in a domain of narrow AI. So our skills are very much needed. Artificial intelligence, what no one understands is AI is built on two pillars. One, data, very important. The second pillar is data scientist. So, without either of them, AI cannot happen. Without data, AI cannot happen. Without data scientist to make the model learn from the AI, learn from the data, AI cannot happen. So, who is data scientist? Data scientist is the human. So, we are in the times of narrow. So, don't be afraid of general AI. We also have to learn to use these new tools. So don't be afraid of adapting to new skills. And always know that AI is very influenced by data, but also data scientist. So the human component is always going to be relevant. Just because machines are getting faster doesn't mean uh, our capabilities are going to go away. You see, in video games, if you take a look at first games, the first game would have been Mario. Okay, that game would have been able to play on maybe 1 millionth of less competition than current machines. And look at the current games today. The games we play today on our regular PC would have been impossible to run on supercomputers of 10 or 20 years ago. Things are improving insanely, but problems are also becoming complex insanely. So, again, a reality check which hopefully gives you an idea so that you can connect your present to future. We don't know where future is going. We don't know what is going to happen, but what we do know that human judgment, the way to use all the tools which are going to come in future, that will always be valuable. So hopefully this gave you an idea about what is AI and where is it in context of the history, so that you can understand what is valuable in future. You see, we are all looking for jobs in future, and hopefully you now realize that future, you will have value if you learn to use the tools which are available. It's your thought process which is always going to have value. So that's it for this lecture, and hopefully it was an illuminating one, because the aim was to clear common misconception, common fears, common misunderstandings in this area.